jobs. That's often quite a clueless process for them.
Mm-hmm.
So this will give them a head start. And I always joke and say it's going to feel like you're going to, a vending machine. And you're like, and it comes like, the egalitarian part, I never want to give up, is I want anybody to come into the course saying, oh, okay, I'm comfortable. Because I can choose, it's not that it's an avatar where you choose someone that looks like you at all. It's that you're manipulating information with people that you may work with on a regular basis or in your blah, blah, blah. How come, the learning to kind of help people be better at their jobs wasn't sticking. It didn't feel like any change was happening.
All right, I'm very excited to be on the call with Nancy. She is the founder of Change Lab. You can find it at changelab.studio. A little bit of story behind that, but maybe we'll get to that later. Nancy, thank you so much for coming and taking our time. We did have a little bit of mess up this morning. And thanks for bearing with me on that. Can you just give us a quick little introduction? And I know you're not super familiar with what we do and what I do, but essentially we work with entrepreneurs, startup companies, small to medium-sized companies. Occasionally work with not-for-profits and helping them grow and create their digital presence, which is kind of like how I fell in love with you and some of the mission that you do.
So let me tell you a little bit about my trajectory, because a lot of people, think, okay, I get that anybody can be, giving service in the nonprofit sector for so long. I stopped counting the decades. And I grew up with the business. But, that makes sense to people. But, how did, some middle-aged lady, kind of get involved in technology? So it really came out of the passion for making sure that the nonprofit communities that I had worked with so long, both on staff and then the last 20 years as a consultant, were able to deliver, the work that they're asked to do by our communities. I mean, and the need is getting bigger and bigger. I mean, nonprofits, as I always say, are often tasked with solving huge world problems, water and,
yes, starvation
and
plagues and
humanitarian
disasters.
efforts to cure diseases and so we don't give them very many tools. And what I realized in working with them in all these different big little on-staff, off-staff kind of scenarios was that we needed to do something about it. So my colleagues and I lived for a long time on the East Coast, and then I've been out in California, actually, where I grew up for the last 20 years. So we started talking, blah, 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 how come, the learning to kind of help people be better at their jobs wasn't sticking. It didn't feel like any change was happening. Mm-hmm. That's really how the conversation started. And so we initially designed and tested twice in Boston a 2-day training using game elements to get people more engaged, thinking that the learning would stick. Indeed, it did. We had a lot of fun. We got great feedback. But what we discovered was, when we put all of our costs together, it would cost somebody, $2,000 to attend for 2 days. And, plus their hotel room and maybe travel. And that didn't seem like where we were going. We were a whole bunch of more egalitarian people. And, it didn't feel like us. So we began to kind of start investigating other educational venues. I have a teaching background. In fact, I was joking, say I must have the very last piece of paper that says lifetime teaching credential from California, which I have.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
I will send a copy to anyone who wants it.
Coming from Boston, this is an achievement.
So anyway, K through 8. Don't get too excited. But anyway.
My wife is pedagogy, so she does K through 4. Yeah.
So I'm also uniquely interested in how one educates somebody else, and a whole sector, for instance. So we started having those kind of conversations. And I actually was interviewing an intern one summer, sitting outside in Santa Monica, lovely cafe, a little umbrella, we're looking at the ocean. And she started talking, we were talking about what we were trying to do. And she said, "Oh, that's so interesting. As you know, I just moved here from Europe. And while I was there," she was American, I was working for this professor who was a marketing professor, and he designed this course for business schools. And it was a game. We played a game in order to set up a business. And she started describing this and that and this and that. And it was so successful, he set up an office in Cambridge, Massachusetts, because Harvard went crazy for it in the B school. So I'm like, I always say to people, it was like a brick hit me on the head. And it was like, that's what we need to do. That's going to raise the bar, give us the standardization that we want, give us the engagement that we want, the game elements that we want. But it's going to, make it the egalitarian approach that we all really cared a lot about. So then we started investigating. Oh, what a cool idea. Surely somebody's doing this. There was a guy in Europe doing it for the B schools. Well, where are the people doing it for the nonprofit sector? It is 6 years past that idea, and there still isn't anybody doing it but us. So, and I'm going to tell you the reason why. First of all, I've decided nobody is as nuts as I am, because this is so much work. And it's work without income for a long time. We were theorizing and researching it, but thank God I had a pack of colleagues working with me. I won't even put their names down here because it's too many, but they have all stayed as advisors, and they've been incredible to work with and as deeply devoted as I have. Then my second best story is, since we came up with this idea, none of us knew a darn thing about games or technology like that.
Sure.
So we had this genius idea. We should do a Kickstarter and see if we could make 25,000.
Was this back in 2004 or?
Oh Lord, I don't even remember. No, it's more like 2016, I think. 16.
Okay. 16. Okay, so pretty recent.
Yeah. So we did a Kickstarter, and lo and behold, we raised $25,000 in 3 weeks. And if you know anything about Kickstarter, if you don't make it in 4 weeks, it's gone. You don't get it. So
it's a great way to test your idea too. I sometimes encourage it.
Very excited. So we hired a part-time lead game developer. But right before that, I ran an ad to bring in animators, because I thought, well, we're going to animate this, right?
Okay.
We identified.
So you're literally going to make it like a video game. Yeah.
So we identify 6 of them. They come into the office and they go, "Where are the game guys?" We literally go, game guys? What? Do we need game guys? We just need animators.
They're looking for programmers and developers.
I can't believe how far we have come in 6 years. We know a lot now. So that's truly how we started. We were a bunch of nonprofit people that had this idea, and we needed to bridge it. And so we just learned. We learned on the job. But what was fascinating to me is a couple of years ago, for instance, let me step back. It's a long answer, but I kind of explained.
No, keep it going. This is so good story.
So I'd also ingeniously attracted this guy named John PlattEn, whom I will ever bow down to. He's got the highest selling book on game design on Amazon. He has for years. He's just a genius. He was part of the first 12 hires for Pokemon Go in Niantic. So he was behind us, right? And at some point I said to him, "God, John, this is so much work, and there's so much learning we had to do, and all this stuff. So what if we just tried to raise money and gone out and tried to give this to some other game lab to do for us?" I said, what would it cost? And so he gave me a figure. And then I asked a friend of mine who had done something very small for another nonprofit some years prior. And I asked him the same question. They both gave me the same answer, which was $1 million per game. By then, we already had most of our major gifts, of course, our big honkin' course. We pretty much have that one done, and we have 4 games and 11 mini games in one of them. And
so with that shoestring budget, you topped everybody.
With a budget of all in, Nancy Brimhall's consulting money is what's paid for this, all in under $600,000.
Good job.
So it was just an extraordinary process that really took us to this conjecture, right? That's making it all kind of happen, this junction, I should say. So anyway.
John helped you kind of through that process, and it was, or you just had that on yourself and you're already done when he came in, he just helped you refine it.
Yeah. You probably would laugh at that question. Yes, he was always available to us when we needed, and we did pepper him with tons of questions in the beginning. Then, of course, I don't see him as much because, now we know. But it was interesting. He did, at my begging, introduce me once to a company that I was hoping would donate their services to help us. And we met with them and this and that and this and that. But no, nobody has the passion that I think we've brought to this, nor has the intersection of understanding the educational part and your field. We're nonprofit professionals. Most of us have, kicked around in this field for a long time. So we're like, super Stop and Shop stores of information. So, you're not going to find that with a game shop, a normal game shop. That's not what they do. So we quickly recognized that, we probably were on the right path, which is we're just going to have to learn how to do it ourselves. But we've moved from game designers to engineers is the biggest shift we've had in the last couple of years. And, it's just changed everything. So anyway, that's what brought us forward and why we were doing it.
Well, that's awesome. I don't know how much you know my backstory, but I'm a developer, and when I was a young guy, like 40 years ago, my passion was like programming and solving problems. But it's that rarely got anybody to success. And so over the past 15 years, really quite intensely, I've been like, what's the secret to getting reasonable people that have a passion to success, right? What is that, right? It's not my skill. For sure, it's not me, right? I can give a good product. At least I think it's a good product and something to go in the market and to do great stuff. But there's this development process that you have to take your founders and we may get into this more if you allow, but the board and how to build those relationships and how to prepare yourself and how to engage your audience and how to engage your team and all that. It's like that's where I've really struggled. And when I was going through Change Lab and your LinkedIn, I was like, this is so cool, because I don't know if you ever realized like the suffering that like a developer or any kind of person that helps companies grow, but to see them fail is insane. And I just love how you came across this solution of this gamification, this education platform. Is it okay if I call it an education platform?
Sure. Yeah. We probably call it that 50% of the time. So.
Okay. So this gamified education platform for teaching all these skills. And I just love that concept because I never thought about gamifying it. Sure, I do with my kids, but I don't know if I could talk to, somebody who's worth like $100 billion or something, like, let's go play a game.
Well, so that's actually kind of an interesting story in the way in which we're bringing it to market, which has been about the last year. We had the pre-market work that we were doing. And of course, a lot of testing and all that's been going on. A little bit of tweaking. We have a little bit of tweaking to do to the big major gifts course around supporting somebody while they go through the game. This is one learning we've had already. too many people were giving me feedback. Oh my God, I can't believe you let me, have access to that for free to be one of your testers. Oh, how exciting. And then they would start, and then they never would finish.
Oh no.
So, yeah. So when we started checking what's going on here, there's like a trend, there's a pattern happening where we found a couple of things that were really interesting. First of all, their bosses are not yet, let's say it's a staff person or even a board member, their bosses haven't completely bought in. So, if they're trying to do it on the job, there's always something the boss wants them to do that takes them away, and they just don't get back to it. If they're doing it at home, it started to kind of, I realized it was missing something that would keep them incentivized. So we're now designing some live check-ins and some, I don't know, leaderboards and some other things that kind of will potentially help with that. I think that will solve it. But that was really interesting to me. And I realized, I have this founder problem because I'm very into it and I find it very exciting. But I have to remember the audience is coming into this. This is all new. So, we have to kind of help them through. And then the second thing, of course, we've sort of changed our strategy a little bit. We're now looking more at group sales because we need the bosses, the board chair, whatever it is, to buy in. They have to really support this in order for people to get the greatest learning out of it. And learning does take time. If you're going to support somebody going off to a symposium or a conference or a seminar for half a day or something, that's what you have to agree to, and you do agree to. You sign the check that pay for them to go. But this is so different. If you're going to bring someone on your team in, you have to be committed to the learning process. But we're now working on kind of a reporting back piece too. Because when we're employees, we all love to show somebody, look, we got a perfect score, or look, we blah, 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 right? So I love the thing that Grammarly does. I'm kind of quite attached to this. So if you've ever used Grammarly, they send you little reports every so often that say, oh, you're 95% better than the rest of the people in how fast you are type. And I sort of go, well, yeah, of course, I type 110 words a minute. But, you're still like, I send it to people sometimes.
Show it off.
Hey, look. So we know that it's got that kind of tweaking that we now have learned. So it's been an interesting year. But we've changed our strategy in the sense, as I said, that it really, I think, is going to require acceptance at a group level, where the whole group kind of comes into this learning process. So we'll see.
And that brings in so many challenges. Gamification is a beautiful thing. Normally, I look at it as something we discuss in the MVP, and we generally bring that in as one of the first features after an MVP. Because it's so complicated. You have to look at how to reward people, how to do recognition, how to, in your case, how to handle the group dynamics and leadership and prestige issues that will come up, because you can't compare the CEO to somebody else in the team that says, hey, you type faster than the CEO, by the way, right? They're going to be like, yeah, I'm not playing with this. Right? Yeah. Right. Don't tell the CEO. And then they put it on their Facebook. Right. And so, and there's ways to kind of tickle everybody's needs, but it's so hard to play into that. Can you share some little nuggets on that? Because you're obviously dealing with it in the swamp of it.
Well, I think there are a couple things we did on purpose. Our characters, this sounds so simple, but when we have animators that we were interviewing, we realized really early on, we wanted our characters to not look like they're playing what I call a shoot 'em up game, right? That we wanted our characters to not have black lines around them. And we purposely worked very hard to figure out characters. By the way, they're all based on someone we know, and we have permission to use their names, which I find hilarious. The whole course is filled with the Brimhall conference room and the blah, blah, Saputra library and the That's my engineer.
Free music school.
Yeah, that's from Matt Santry. Hello, Matt. The great guy was our second lead game developer that we worked with part-time.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, so we like playing with that. But anyway, we started off. I'm losing my train of thought. So we started off with this idea of making characters that everybody could feel comfortable with. That's the nonprofit egalitarian part, I never want to give up, is I want anybody to come into the course saying, oh, okay, I'm comfortable. Because I can choose, it's not that it's an avatar where you choose someone that looks like you at all. It's that you're manipulating information with people that you may work with on a regular basis or in your community. Yep. You feel, okay, that looks like us, right?
Yep.
So we kind of did that on purpose. And then from there, I think in terms of the game elements, we just continued to find ways to make it funny. I mean, this is the beginning of our conversation. And I'll give you, for instance, there's one part early on in the Major Gifts course where you have to actually meet some people in an ante room, and you have to do your first analysis of trying to figure out whether they're going to help you by going into another room. You're going to have a major donor roundtable. You're going to discuss some potential prospects. But this is the group that's going to help you evaluate them. So, people, your CEO of your organization, your person who is the director of volunteers, the mayor of your town, whatever, a big community volunteer. I forgot how many it is now. Let's say it's 12. So in that process, you select them, your best grouping. They go into the Brimhall conference room, and that you have literally a round table, and you're having a discussion. There's some other things you do. But as you put your group together, are these the 8 people? You have a chance in the game to look at it again and determine whether this is the best group. And it has some prompts that come up that help you go, is that really who you want? Is the mayor going to have the time to show up all the time for these meetings? Things like that, right? And so you've got
all these questions you need to know when you're building your board or your advisory team.
So you've got a wall behind you in the table that's showing who you've selected. Let's say it's 8. And it looks very much like a Zoom meeting because we were building this part during the pandemic, right? So we've got the little, group of people, little squares. And if you decide to change somebody out, which you can do, what happens is that person that's up in the corner, let's say it's Nancy Brimhall, and you don't want her anymore, you want somebody else, a foot comes down and goes squash and kind of squashes away. I had to fight for that because I'm a Monty Python nut of that. So I knew what that was. I had to check whether we had the rights to use it and all of that. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. I was about to say, it sounds like some kind of cross between Monty Python and the game Clue.
It is the exact foot that Monty Python used to use when they would go.
That's awesome.
So we have some stuff in there. I had to fight for another one. Sometimes your humor isn't quite understood by younger people, so you have to fight for it. But I had another one in the same room. Part of the storyline is that you're raising money for an aquarium. So behind your meeting then is a big tank, and you can see these fish floating around. And so at some point during your meeting, the door opens. You see a door there, but you don't actually know where it goes. A door opens. A shark comes out, dripping of water, and goes, oh, oops, wrong room. I find that hilarious. And that keeps me going with, we wanted to sprinkle throughout it little puns and fun things that you might, be scrolling around with your mouth.
I love the shark reference. Now, can you
thank you.
There's got to be some deeper meaning into
that. I don't know what the deeper meaning is.
Like, to me, I think like Shark Tank. I'm thinking like when you're dealing with this kind of investors and stuff, there's some good guys out there, and there's some
always
sharks.
There's always that. But so that is something we did very much on purpose. That we wanted to also show the ability to not only have fun, but to relax and think about fundraising in kind of new ways, because so many people over the years have told me, oh my God, I could never raise money. How can you do that? How do you do that? How do you do that? They start almost shaking. I could never do it. And it's like, it's really, it's the easiest thing in the world to ever do if you have passion for the organization that you want to raise money for. And if you've built trust and you're a genuine person in your feelings and you say what you're thinking, even I always teach people this intro. You've got to ask somebody 101 for money. You want to be able to say, I know this is really hard for both of us to have this conversation. We know each other so well. But I would be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity over lunch to talk to you about how much you've done for this organization. We couldn't be at this stage without you, and blah, 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 right? So to me, that feels like the most honest thing that I can say, because that's exactly what I'm thinking. Wow, this is hard, right? And they're thinking the same thing. Oh, this is so difficult, right? If you get that off the table, then you have the conversation. Everyone you can see them. They just, okay, well, now we both said it, right? So, so anyway, that's what we've been doing in the course that, makes it our own. It's unlike anything else you've ever seen.
It sounds like a lot of fun. How long is it? You don't have to answer any of these questions, but if somebody like really sat down on it and, focused, like how long would it take somebody to go through the course and like somebody who's not super smart like myself, right? How long would it, and is antisocial maybe and shy in public, right? How long would it take to go through the course?
So right now we have 2 big courses up. We have some other free immersive things. We have a DEI piece I'm very proud of that is a learning tree, and that's quite wonderful. But we have 2 paid courses right now. But if you email me, I can certainly give you the link for free, because we're still really testing. But the first one is kind of an introduction to fundraising, where you're really talking about what's a donor, who is a donor amongst all these choices that you may have. So that one is called Buzzing for Donors, and that's an hour at the most. Sweet course, easy to learn, and fun and beautiful. The second one, the Major Gifts Part 1, by the way, we're about to bring out Part 2, but Part 1 is 3 hours if you select one prospect to work with. And you go through this whole process of how do you figure out cultivating them? Are you listening? Are you watching what they're doing? And then there's other things happen. Right through to asking them for a gift. How do you select where you're going to be asking? Oh, what if they say, meet me for coffee at a little cafe, and you get there and it's busy and you're outside on the sidewalk cafe and everyone walking by is, hi, Mrs. Smith, how are you? And how are the kids? You're there to ask them for money and you can't control the conversation. So lots of things you don't even think about till you get in those scenarios. So that one is 3 hours per prospect, and it gives you an opportunity to do it with 3 different prospects. So the answer is 3, 6, or 9. If you
and you can kind of go through that multiple times and work on those skills.
It's equivalent to a pretty heavy duty training. But
that's terrific.
Heavy duty.
I was looking at the course, and I think it's super reasonably priced, by the way. So
yes, good job on that. On purpose too. Yeah. So
bravo. And there's people, if people love to support this kind of mission, there is a chance to donate to this also. I'm just throwing that out there. So if you have,
we are a for-profit business on purpose, because eventually we will go after some venture capital funds, but we wanted to do this next.
So you're not doing the open AI thing, right? Where you say, I'm going to be for profit. No, but yes.
No, but we have been selected by the Social Impact Fund, which is a 501c3 fiscal sponsor. So we're part of that fund, and we can and do apply for grants. So we're actually looking at some very big deals now with something we have that we want to design for the grassroots community, and we want to make it as if they're co-authors of it. So we work in a pilot project with a select group that determine what it is that they want to learn, and then we really work on designing it so it's in an acceptable format. We now do VR. We're about to load up a couple
Yeah.
of videos.
I wanted to ask you your thoughts on AR and VR coming into the future with games and.
This is where I really come alive because I'm all about this. I think because they appeal to me on a couple levels. I probably am a little ADHD, I would guess. And so I have a lot of energy and, I have a lot of attention on things that intrigue me. I also I like things that are very visual. So I'm certainly a visual learner if I were to describe myself. It has to be attractive to get my attention. So, so VR and AR to me are just incredible elements that we can choose and use. We just submitted a response to a proposal we were asked to do for a nonprofit winery in Texas that we're going to be working with, hopefully, and we'll know in the next, 6 weeks maybe. And
when that's done and going, please send me a message and tell me how that goes. Not that I love wine. I have no interest in alcohol.
I grew up in Napa Valley. What can I say?
Yeah, right. California.
Right. But anyway, we are playing with some really cool things where there's lots of learning that can come from that. We also, of course, we're digging deep into AI now, and we have something we're going to be announcing probably next week that's around AI, and we're going to take it this fall to the next level where it can be even bigger and probably be licensed separately.
It's going to be at least a week before this gets published. You can share a little bit if you want.
Call me later.
Okay. I'm going to call you later. I'm excited about this too.
I can tell you a little bit. What we're moving in the direction of is we figured out the algorithm to be able to take information that you would have on a particular prospect. The average things: how much have they donated to your organization in the past? How often? What level? Where do they live? Whatever
what they donate to and their interests.
10 or 15 questions, what you may know about them. But it can be also someone that's never donated to you, of course, but maybe somebody your board is recommending. If you know anything about organizations, they come into your office with, I just ran into so-and-so and they just moved down the street and they have a Jaguar and the kids went to private schools and they're a great prospect for us. Now, I just want you to go out there and get to know them.
Right? Go know them.
I don't know them. I can't introduce you. So anyway, so we have the ability in the algorithm to take that information, flush it through, rate it, tell you how successful it's likely to be, and also organize the responses for if you really want to go forth with the guy down the street with the Jaguar and the kids in private school that you don't know, here's what you have to do. Here's the things that are going to be required to kind of push that one forward. But it allows you to rate your portfolio, which is the biggest problem a lot of nonprofits have. Everything feels even to them. Now,
there's a lot of good causes out there, and
the sophistication that the big shops have, the universities and stuff, they know much more how to do that. But the medium and small shops, that's often quite a clueless process for them. So this will give them a head start. And I always joke and say it's going to feel like you're going to, a vending machine. You're like, and it comes like, but of course, there's the next level to that, which is what we're working on right now. That I think is going to be
amazing how AI is coming in with that empathetic, reasonable touch to things.
I love it all. It's like, bring it on. The thing that I find interesting is finally with AI, I think the nonprofit sector is going to be forced to respond to technology. Gamification, learning, investing in training, maybe they're like this. But AI,
I think it has to, because gamification increases retention. And drive and openness, right?
Yeah.
There's no better way to open yourself up than through gamification.
Yeah.
And then you add virtual reality or augmented reality, and you're doing it. You're actually in there, and you're getting like, what is that like? it's 5% if you read a book. It's like 20% if you hear
incredible.
something.
I mean, if you're
It's like something like 70%
courses,
if you
you're at
do
a
something.
75% retention.
I was about to say that, but I thought that was too big a number.
No, it's true. It's from the National Training Institute, which is in Maine. You can look it up. But 5 to 15% retention if you're reading a book, listening to a lecture, or watching a video.
Yep.
That's where I get people's attention, because they're like, oh, okay. And then the other place that I get their attention is, which we probably should mention, is nonprofits in general are growing 10 times faster than the for-profit sector in the last 20 years.
Reading that from your content, and I'm like, isn't that amazing?
And most people do not know that. Yeah, it's 6% of GDP now. So it's that has just been under the wire.
Now, do you think it's because people in nonprofit are just so efficient and so good, or do you think it's because the economy is pretty decent and people have passion and they're kind of expressing themselves through that, or something else? I'm so curious.
So I have one of my interns sitting here listening to us. I should almost ask him, because I'll be curious what you think. His name is Will.
I will.
So to me, I feel, as a baby boomer, I feel that the generation that Will's in, a couple of years out of college, are like almost a mirror image of what I was like when I was young. There's incredible passion. They really desire to work for nonprofits on purpose, because they want to be part of that element of change. They're not interested in just making money, although of course they've got to take care of their families, etc. But they have a desire and see some of these movements having already gained momentum because of the work that nonprofits are doing. So I think that part of it is passion, but it's also the ability to understand that change is necessary and that change can happen if people work together. So I think the trick is, can they be efficient in their jobs so they don't, burn out? And can they be compensated appropriately so they can have families and have the lifestyle that they wish? They don't have to make a choice of, no, son, you've got to go work for banking or finance or whatever it is in order to, put your kids through college.
Right. Sorry for the face.
I get it. So I do have a fair number of my friends who've been former recovering lawyers who are now in the nonprofit, including the guy that referred Will to me is one of our advisors, and he was an attorney. So yeah, it's about change and wanting to be part of that team, and that's the way it was for me when I was young and in college and right out of college. We wanted to be the force of change, and I still. It's weird with Change Lab. Apparently, I haven't given that up. So,
there's some of us that love that change. For me, there's good and bad change. And I sometimes don't know until I step into it a little too deep.
I agree with that. But, if you don't look under that leaf and do something that does interest you, you'll never know. So,
yes,
that question that I asked John Sir PlattEn quite a ways back, wow, what if we just gave this to somebody else? This was a lot of work. It got answered by, you're the only one, Nancy, that can probably do it as well as it needs to be done, because it's new. So
I think we all have our kind of purpose in life and a bunch of small missions that we're set to accomplish.
I agree with that.
You can't be too proud sometimes. You can't be too secure in yourself. It's good to take some risks. It gets harder as you get let Will know, try as much as possible before he has kids, right? It gets harder afterwards.
He wasn't listening because he has a 6-month-old.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, hey, nice to meet you, my friend. So look, now, you have a 6-month-old. Yeah. Now is the easy time.
Yes,
Mostly
exactly.
it sleeps, it crawls, it does like 2 other things, right? Which are both messy.
Right.
When it in like 6 months or 6 months, it starts getting harder. In 3 years, it's terrible, right? These little monsters, they're monsters. Is it a boy or girl?
Girl.
Oh, good. You're all set. Don't worry about anything. Look, until you have a boy, right?
Yeah.
Go live your life, experiment, and have fun.
Yep.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
We know about girls. We only create girls in my family, apparently.
Well, in my family, all boys. All we know is blood and broken things and fixing walls.
Exactly. No, the little girls, you'll see the difference. They sit in the corner and play with their dollies. They're very nice to their friends.
Yeah, and they're so
And
cute.
they read. When they're not doing that, they're reading.
Yes. Some of my friends have girls, and they're like, they're so difficult. I'm like, you have no idea what you're missing. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Awesome. So what's your, obviously the gamification makes adopting to change kind of fun and playful and takes out a lot of the risk and the fear of it. And Change Lab is kind of a great introduction and transition into that to do things in a safe environment. That's not academic. It's not scary. You can go through it multiple times and learn and grow.
Right.
But so many people aren't taking advantage of it yet. Like, what do you have? Like a 5% or 10% complete? Normally, I think like for a course, like 12% completion might be average.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, I hadn't heard that. I'm all about 100% because
Yeah. We all want everything to be totally into it.
Apparently. So,
but it's just like when you send out a bunch of emails, right? Not all of them are going to get read.
Yeah, that's true.
Kind of the same thing.
That's true. I don't know. We just keep working on it. So, I mean, there's a plethora of ideas that any of us have when we start trying to solve a problem. So, put some energy into this is our next thing, and do those tweaks that are going to take it to the next step. But I think all of them are pretty tried and true. So, we'll give it a try. But from here, it's going to be a little bit more of immersive work that may or may not be in a game format, because that's also kind of the way we want to go.
So get out in the real world and do something.
Well, and then, I'm always looking at, new technology that's popping up every day, as we know. I just read something about somebody that was working on something, I forgot what country, and you could actually step into a painting at a museum and explore it virtually. And I'm like, oh my God, do I know what I could do with that?
Oh, so, no kidding.
So, it's just, we're like this close to these next things. And so all of it, I think if we're open to really the thrill of learning and taking and adapting how we approach whatever it is that we're doing right now. Of course, we're talking about nonprofits because I feel it's so understood.
I think it applies to for profits too. Everything you're saying, and as I'm looking through the discussions and the topics covered on the platform, this will have benefit for anybody. These are even basic human skills that a lot of people need.
Yeah, and there's applications to how teams are regarded and rewarded. If you're putting teams together, they're going to be motivated to work on some of these things. I've been talking about interns and, of course, and volunteer colleagues, and I'm talking about, going out to raise seed money and then spending down $1 million on a team I put together in 12 months. I actually know someone who did that. And that's not my idea. I want to be here for the long term. So I always describe myself as, if there's the hare and the tortoise, I'm the tortoise. I want to make sure that the stuff that we're working on is the best that's out there, that we're educating to a standard, and that you recognize that the process of learning is constantly unfolding. And there's no reason to be trying to jump ahead. It is not going to pay off. So we're there. We're like, we intend to be solid and here forever. So
you strike me as the hare in the tortoise shell, maybe, or the nighttime hare, and the public tortoise.
There you go.
You've moved fast. I think there's a lot of congratulations to you for getting so far the way you have. So
Well,
good job.
you. I appreciate the time that you've given to let us kind of describe what we do, because it's not easy. We're actually going to play around with our landing page here probably the next week or so. Because as we evolve, of course, we describe ourselves, and the kinds of things we're now doing has widened. So, now we have to play around with the landing page.
Yeah, I was thinking you really need to work on your landing page.
Yes, we do. We know that. So,
there's some room in there to show your vision.
Yeah. So, that's what happens. If you keep evolving, you have to keep describing yourself differently. And, have to keep showcasing the work that you're doing. And that's hard because we're just like doing. So now we have a moment and, invest in the way that we talk about it. And
what do they say? The shoemakers' kids don't have shoes.
That's us at the moment, but we're going to fix it by this.
You're going to fix it. Yeah, you are. You're going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Nancy, I've taken up more time than you promised. Thank you so much. Let me ask you two last questions. One is, if you could, I always ask this, if you could share like your favorite book that you think people could use, and then just on the way out message.
I wish I could put my hands on it quick enough, but I have to stuff behind me. But I mentioned John Zur, Zuur, PlattEn, PlattEn. Go get his book on gamification. You can get it on Amazon.
Awesome.
It's a phenomenally well written book. It's a small little soft book. It's not a hard book, but it's just full of ideas and how to approach what you're thinking of. And I'm a big believer in gamification in general, or immersive anything in general, in any work environment, so that people feel the creative energy of doing something together that they can have a part of, and that they feel proud of, and that it changes their work life and their product. So, work lives are getting harder and harder because now we've got some people back in the office. Very few are full-time from what I can see. It's these split schedules, and how do you communicate, and how do you feel part of something when you're not all there slaving away together and going out to having a drink, on Friday night together. That's really not happening the way it used to when I was younger. So what's a team? How do you make a team feel like they're doing something together? So I don't know. I think that's part of it. That's probably the one book that I would recommend.
Okay. He also has some Udemy courses, not to step on your toes, but
does he have any courses? I don't think so. He's sort of retired now. He's
I'm pretty sure I have some of his game development courses, fundamental courses.
Could be. Okay, then I learned something new that I didn't know.
But I might be wrong.
He's
Maybe
writing
they just reference them.
Comic books now, and of course he's writing storylines like crazy for some of the big studios. He's worked for all of them. So, not to take anything away from him, but we absolutely adore him.
Yeah, sounds like a great guy.
He's a great guy. But I was an English lit major, so don't get me going. Reading is everything. Reading is everything. I read absolutely everything. So, just keep yourself aware of what's going on. Social media, I call it the University of TikTok. I like to keep the stuff that comes into my head, wide ranging and open to constant kind of input. And that's what changes what we do around here. So I'm all for that.
Awesome. Good for you, Nancy. Look, this time with you was a blessing, and I wish you guys a lot of success in this. And I encourage everybody to check out changelab.studio. So I think this is going to be good for people, businessmen and not-for-profits, wishfuls, and guys struggling with that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, and we'll keep you informed. How's that?
We'll do. We'll keep in contact. I'm very excited for what you have going on.
Sounds great. All right. Hey, take care.